Some soldiers fight because they must. Others step forward willingly, taking the greatest risks, knowing they might not return. Throughout history, the first to step onto the battlefield has carried a unique burden. Whether the spearhead of an attack or the solitary figure charging into danger, these soldiers set the tone for the fight, often shaping its outcome. But what makes someone take that first step into the chaos of war? Why do some willingly embrace such immense risk?
The answer is never simple. For some, it's a sense of duty so deeply ingrained that hesitation feels like betrayal. For others, it's loyalty to their comrades, a desire to protect those who will follow. Still, others are driven by the promise of glory, recognition, or the chance to make their mark in history.
What's striking is how universal this phenomenon is. Across centuries, cultures, and conflicts, soldiers have repeatedly chosen to lead the charge, knowing the dangers they face. What unites them is a kind of courage that defies ordinary understanding. This is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it, fueled by motivations that transcend individual survival. From ancient battlefields to modern warfare, the willingness to step forward has always held a magnetic power, inspiring those who witness it and shaping the legends we tell.
So who are these soldiers and what drives them? These are the stories of those who dared to go first.
Let's start with Rome's Velites. The Battle of Cannae is remembered as one of the greatest military defeats of the Roman Republic, but hidden within its tragedy lies the story of those who first met the fury of Hannibal's Carthaginian army. Among them were Rome's Velites, a light infantry unit tasked with initiating combat and absorbing the initial impact of battle. These soldiers, often drawn from the lower social classes, were the first to step onto the battlefield, knowing full well that survival was uncertain. Their mission was clear: disrupt Hannibal's front lines and create opportunities for the heavier Roman maniples to engage. Armed with javelins and light shields, the Velites relied on speed, agility, and coordination. At Cannae, however, the odds were stacked against them. Hannibal's forces employed a sophisticated double envelopment tactic, and the Velites bore the brunt of the initial assault. So, what motivated these men to take such a dangerous position? For many, it was a sense of duty embedded in Roman culture, where loyalty to the Republic and the promise of honor outweighed personal fear. Some were conscripted, but others volunteered, driven by the hope of earning glory or rising through the ranks. For these soldiers, to fight and die for Rome was the ultimate display of courage and commitment. The Velites at Cannae represent the essence of those who lead the charge, individuals willing to risk everything to protect their comrades and uphold their civilization. Though their sacrifice couldn't turn the tide of the battle, their resolve set the stage for Rome's eventual resurgence against Carthage. Centuries later, in early modern Europe, we find another form of bravery that came with an almost guaranteed death sentence: the Forlorn Hope. These were volunteer soldiers chosen for the most dangerous assignments during sieges, typically leading assaults on fortified walls or breaches. Unlike elite units, these men volunteered knowing that their survival depended entirely on luck and the chaos of battle. The name itself, Forlorn Hope, reflects the grim reality they faced. In exchange for their courage, survivors were often rewarded with promotions, wealth, or recognition. At the Siege of Breda in 1625, Forlorn Hope soldiers led the charge against Spanish defenders. Armed with nothing more than rudimentary weapons and sheer determination, these men stormed the breach, absorbing the enemy's concentrated fire to create opportunities for the main army. But what drove them? For some, the promise of advancement was irresistible, while for others, it was personal ambition or a desire to prove themselves. Unlike elite soldiers, these men often lacked advanced training, relying instead on raw bravery and determination. The Forlorn Hope embodied the willingness to face impossible odds, not because they were ordered to, but because they chose to. Their actions were pivotal, as their sacrifices often turned the tide of sieges. Though many perished, their courage inspired those who followed, showing that even the most perilous roles could shape the outcome of the battle. By World War I, warfare had transformed, and with it, the role of soldiers who went first into battle. Among the most feared and effective units of the time were Germany's stormtroopers, specially trained assault forces designed to break through entrenched enemy lines. In the stagnant trench warfare of the Western Front, these men were the spearhead of German offensives, facing unimaginable risks as the first to attack. Stormtroopers operated in small, highly mobile groups, armed with grenades, flamethrowers, and light machine guns. At the Spring Offensive of 1918, these units led the charge, infiltrating enemy trenches under cover of darkness. Their goal was to exploit weak points in Allied defenses, creating openings for the main army to follow. Unlike volunteers in earlier eras, stormtroopers were handpicked for their physical endurance, tactical skill, and psychological resilience. Their loyalty to their comrades and belief in the effectiveness of their training gave them the confidence to face the horrors of no man's land. However, the stormtroopers also operated under immense pressure. Success was critical to Germany's war effort, and failure meant inevitable retreat. These soldiers were not just warriors, but pioneers of modern infantry tactics. Their willingness to face certain dangers changed the way wars were fought, demonstrating how training, discipline, and a shared sense of purpose could drive men to achieve the extraordinary. But not every first charge into battle stems from training or strategy. Sometimes it's a matter of blind obedience. The charge of the Light Brigade during the Crimean War is one of the most iconic examples of soldiers stepping into almost certain death. On October 25, 1854, a miscommunication in British command led the Light Brigade to attack a heavily fortified Russian artillery position. The soldiers, armed only with sabers and light firearms, knew the mission was suicidal. Yet, as the bugle sounded, they charged into the valley, their discipline and sense of duty overriding their survival instincts. Of the 670 men who rode into the Valley of Death, fewer than 200 returned. So, why did they do it? For the men of the Light Brigade, the answer lay in their unwavering commitment to military discipline and the ethos of Victorian-era British soldiers. Questioning an order was unthinkable. Their duty was to act regardless of the consequences. While the charge was a tactical disaster, the bravery of the Light Brigade became a symbol of selfless courage, immortalized in Alfred Lord Tennyson's poem. Finally, we turn to the Soviet shock troops, who epitomized the concept of being first on the battlefield during World War II. These specialized units were tasked with breaking through heavily fortified German defenses on the Eastern Front. Armed with submachine guns, explosives, and unwavering resolve, they led the way in brutal urban battles like Stalingrad and Berlin. Motivated by a mix of patriotism, fear of retreat, often enforced by political commissars, and loyalty to their comrades, these soldiers faced staggering casualty rates. At the Battle of Berlin, shock troops stormed the Reichstag, engaging in some of the fiercest close-quarters combat of the war. Their actions paved the way for the Soviet victory and the end of the European conflict. Their bravery was driven not just by military orders, but by a belief in the importance of their mission. For many, the chance to strike a decisive blow against Nazi Germany outweighed the risks. Shock troops showed that courage could stem from a combination of necessity and shared purpose, embodying the spirit of those who go first into battle. In the annals of history, few leaders embodied the spirit of leading from the front like Alexander the Great. While most commanders orchestrated battles from a safe distance, Alexander consistently placed himself at the forefront, sharing the risks of his men and inspiring them with his fearless leadership. During the Siege of Tyre in 332 BC, one of Alexander's most challenging campaigns, he personally led the assault against the heavily fortified city. As his soldiers stormed the walls, Alexander fought alongside them with a shield in hand, facing the same dangers as the lowest-ranking soldier. His presence was a strategic move to motivate his troops. By showing that he was willing to risk everything, Alexander inspired his army to achieve feats they might not have thought possible.
Alexander's motivation was rooted in his understanding of leadership. He believed that a true leader should not ask his men to face dangers he wouldn't face himself. This philosophy earned him the unwavering loyalty of his troops, who followed him across continents and into seemingly impossible battles. His approach wasn't without cost. Alexander suffered numerous injuries in battle, but he never retreated from the front lines. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if these stories of courage inspire you, make sure to subscribe and explore more moments where history was shaped by bravery.